Greetings cinephiles, and everyone else for that matter. Welcome back to Beyond the Credits. And for this video, we'll be talking about a movie that, I'll admit I'm a little late to. I have an excuse. The best excuse I could possibly say is that the channel didn't exist when this movie originally came out, so I didn't really think this would be a movie I covered on the channel. I was initially going to talk about him for my first review, but after those glowing reviews I saw online, I'll just wait. I'll wait for cheap night. I'm sorry, guys. I'm sorry. I'm just a broke college student who's literally anxious about every penny that leaves my bank account. Just give me this. I'd rather not go into a financial crisis, thank you. You'll get your him review when it happens. I'm not super concerned about it. But for now, though, we got a good one, as today we will be talking about the newest Stephen King adaptation directed by one Francis Lawrence, simply known as The Long Walk. And this film is about an annual competition where a group of young adults are required to walk endlessly till one of them is left standing. Whoever is the last will receive a cash prize and a wish where they can ask for anything they desire. The catch is, though, if a participant stops or walks under 3 kilometers an hour while the competition is ongoing, they will be given warnings until eventually being disqualified, which of course in proper Stephen King rules means that they will be killed. But for this particular long walk, we follow Raymond, played by Cooper Hoffman, who's joined the walk for very specific reasons. But after a while, he begins to make friends with some of the other contestants, like Hank, played by Ben Wang, Arthur, played by Tuat Nguyen, and Peter, played by rising star David Johnson. The boys form a group called the Three Musketeers, but through the film, their friendships and will are tested as they endure the long walk, knowing only one of them will make it out alive. Now, before I get into the meat of this review, I really wanted to remind you guys that we are currently on our way to 1 million subscribers. Feels like yesterday since we started this channel, but we're almost there, guys. We're almost there. We're just a mere 999,999 subscribers away from achieving that goal. So if you want to help me out, why not consider subscribing and liking the video? It really shows your support, but with that, let's get back to the video. Alrighty, so The Long Walk. I'm gonna be honest, I have got a lot to say about this movie because when I first heard about this adaptation, I didn't really know what to think about it, as Stephen King adaptations are not necessarily, in my opinion, known for consistently being amazing. Like, don't get me wrong, sometimes you'll get lucky and get films like The Shining, It, and even stuff like Carrie from 1976. But on the other side of that spectrum, you get films like The Dark Tower, Cell, and Firestarter, which aren't exactly great. Not to mention director Francis Lawrence, who you may be familiar with if you've seen any of the Hunger Games movies. He's the one behind the directing chair on this one, and to be honest, I'm not super big on him. He's not my favorite. I just never have really cared all that much. I don't particularly love his style. That's just a me thing, I know, but I wasn't super excited for this film just because of that. Until, though, I saw the trailer, and I became at least a little bit more interested because, honestly, even from the trailer, I could see that there could be some real potential in this movie. But with that potential, I also saw a future where this film could just be kind of boring and really a giant nothing burger, and maybe even like extremely meandering and slow and boring and blah blah blah. But I'm gonna eat my words here. Francis, I'm sorry, brother, I treated you too harshly because, man, this film is great.
Perhaps I treated you too hard.
Genuinely one of the biggest surprises I've seen this year. Like, before, obviously, I saw it was getting good reviews, but just how I work, I like to see things before I actually make up my mind, like, you know, how everyone should make their opinions, but whatever. But just wow, my mind was honestly kind of blown by this movie. This movie did everything I wanted right and destroyed any possible concern I had going in, because this is one of the most intense and emotional movies I've seen in a while. And a lot of that has to do with the script here and the actors' chemistry with one another, because what they were able to do here with these characters and accomplish is something extremely impressive in my opinion, and something that could have went wrong so incredibly easy, because there's a risk when it comes to centering your movie so heavily around a group of characters like this in a setting where there's really not that much going on. Like, they're just walking, and then like some things will happen, of course, but when you have a movie where that's the only thing that's going on, and it's mostly just characters interacting with one another, there's a certain pressure to almost sell the audience on these characters if the audience doesn't care about the characters, especially in a film where it's so heavily relying on their lives, and if they make it out alive. If their relationships with one another and the chemistry is just not working, it could honestly ruin the movie. It could make it come off uninteresting, boring, or it can even make the relationships themselves come off as wooden and fake. But I can luckily say that that does not happen here. Like, this film is great for that, because all the characters in this movie are extremely charming, charismatic, and work extremely well off each other. Especially David Johnson, who's absolutely the star of the show in this movie. If you don't recognize him, he actually starred in another movie last year. It was pretty small. Not a lot of you probably heard about it. It's actually called Alien Romulus, where he played an android named Andy. And just like in that film, he's excellent. He definitely has an extremely bright future in this industry, and I honestly wish nothing but the best for him. Like, I can't wait to see him in his next role, because he is killing it in this industry right now. But there is a reason why at the beginning of this review I mentioned the Three Musketeers so heavily, because this film is so heavily reliant on their connections with one another and the bonds that they develop throughout the movie, especially considering the situation that they're in, because they know damn well only one of them is making it out of this film alive. Like, they know this from the very beginning, but despite this, they still are able to develop and grow as friends together in the very limited amount of time that they actually have. They all feel like real people. They all feel genuinely real, which leads into why this movie is so goddamn emotional, because by the time you started to like these characters and understand what they're about, you're reminded in a really intense scene that this is life or death. These characters are most likely not going to make it out alive. So you're mentally preparing yourself the whole movie, and when our characters start to get picked off, it leads to some incredibly emotional sequences that, I'll be honest, I'm man enough to say I definitely shed some tears. Like, it's honestly a lot more emotional than you may think. But that's the other thing that they did really well in this movie. It was the tension that they were able to build with such a simple premise. And I also appreciate how they showed us different things that could go wrong in a situation like this. Like, simply, how the hell do you go to the washroom when you're walking constantly? It's not like you can stop. You're gonna get shot. I mean, you could just, like, shit yourself. No, that's a good idea, actually. But seriously, the people who say that they could just, oh yeah, I could have won that game easily, I can walk forever. No, you're not that guy, pal. You are not that guy, because there are so many things that can go wrong that I think they do a really good job, like, illustrating, like, this is not easy. This is actually insanely difficult. Like, you could get sick, you could break your ankle, you could fall asleep. There's so many things that you cannot avoid that could happen in a situation like this, which I think really added to the suspense of the movie and kept it interesting, because really anything could go wrong at any point to any of our characters. It could be the protagonist, like, it could be any of our group of characters that we have in the movie, and I think that really worked because it really added to that emotion, and considering how much we enjoyed these characters, we don't want any of that to happen to them, and obviously, it led to some really emotional moments when things did inevitably happen. I also really enjoyed the psychological impact the walk had on the characters, especially those who got really close to the end, and how they almost started to lose their minds as they mentally started to break down. Obviously, it added a lot of emotion to this movie, but it added a level of realism and development where the characters who were once determined to win are now just okay with being eliminated. Like, it's really deep because the characters change so much through this movie. We're like, I can win this, and then by the end they're like, no, I can't do this. Like, this is so much more than I bit off. Like, what was I thinking? Characters start to break down, they start to cry, they go into, like, crisis mode, and it's that level of realism that I think everyone in this scenario would go through, which I think makes it so impactful. And it's all these elements that really reflect upon the themes of this movie, like the determination of the human race, and even something as simple as the power of friendship, and the resilience it can lead to. Honestly, this movie is just great. Like, I don't really know what else I'm supposed to say about it in terms of I'm speaking negatively, because I don't really have anything, like, at all, to be honest. Like, I really enjoyed this movie. This movie is just an incredibly well-written, acted, extremely intense journey about the power of human resilience. So coming into my final ratings, I'm definitely going to go ahead and give this film a 9 out of 10 from a critical point of view. I think critics are really going to appreciate the level of depth this movie was able to accomplish, especially between the characters and the realism in their relationships. But I will say, not far behind from that, I think the casual audience is going to really enjoy this movie too. I think the casual audience is really going to be able to sympathize with the characters in this film and be really invested in the thrills of this movie, even with its simple premise. And that's why I'm going to give it like an 8 out of 10, because I still think that the casual audience may have a harder time getting into this movie just from the premise alone. And I think that certain scenes, like, you go to a movie to be happy, and even though this movie is very much not that, I still think that the audience, or the general audience, might slightly think that is dour and not want to see it just because of it. But I think that's kind of a stupid complaint, but I just thought I'd mention it because I knew some people would, probably there'd be someone who would bring it up. But with all that said, The Long Walk is a journey that will break you but stay with you for years to come. At least for me it will. But with all that said comes the end of the review. I just really want to say thank you to everyone who's listening and sticked around for the entire video. If you like what you watched, maybe consider liking and subscribing, and maybe hit that bell too so you can stay caught up with all the recent uploads to the channel. But with all that, till next time, I will see you later.